Rev first. Verify clutch. Maybe. Well, welcome back to Tank Slap TV, and this week we're going to be working on my buddy Bradford's 1986 Honda XL 250R. Stands for race or something. I don't know. But it's dual sport. It's got some things on it. It's got potential. Story is, he found this laying on its side with another motorcycle on top of it that had probably sat out there for 10 years or so. And then he said, hey, man, I'm going to take this bike and I'm going to put it in my shed and I'm going to fix it up. And then it sat in his shed. And then he told me about it. I said, bring it over. We'll get it running. So that is the plan. We're going to take this thing, get it back on the road, make it run. Since 2011, I think, was the last time this thing was on the road. Maybe. That was the last time it was registered. But I'm going to get it over there on the rack. While I'm doing that, here's a little story about it. The dual sport motorcycle exists because riders have always hated limits. Back in the 1960s, if you wanted to ride trails, but also needed to get there legally, you'd slap a headlight and a plate on a dirt bike and hope the cops didn't look too close. That idea, one bike that does it all, pretty much created the dual sport. Then, in 1968, Yamaha changed everything with the DT1. It was basically a dirt bike you could buy straight from the dealership that was already street legal. No hacks, no sketchy wiring. You could ride it to work, then point it at a dirt road on the way home, and just go. People loved it, and the other manufacturers scrambled to keep up. By the 70s, everyone was in the game. Suzuki rolled out the TS bikes, Kawasaki had the KE lineup, and Yamaha kept refining the DTs. Honda also had the XL series. This is where bikes like the Honda XL 250R really started to shine. The XL 250R wasn't flashy or fast, it was just honest. Air-cooled, 4-stroke, simple carb, kickstart, and built to survive abuse. It was the kind of bike you could ride all day on back roads, disappear onto a trail, and still trust to get you home. The XL 250R became a favorite because it nailed the balance. Light enough to handle trails without feeling like a pig, but stable enough on pavement to actually enjoy riding to the trailhead. It didn't have crazy horsepower, but it had torque where you needed it, and the motor was known for being nearly bulletproof if you kept oil in it. For a lot of riders, the XL 250R was their first real do-everything motorcycle. The 80s and 90s is when dual sports really earned their reputation. 4-strokes became the norm, and bikes like the Honda XR series, Suzuki DR350, and Yamaha XT350 showed up. Honda basically took what worked on the XL line and turned the XR into a more dirt-focused animal. Meanwhile, the KLR 650 rolled in like a tractor with turn signals. Heavy, sure, but it would cross continents if you asked it nicely and change the oil every once in a while. Moving into the 2000s, the formula didn't change much, and honestly, that's why people love these bikes. The DR650, XR650L, and smaller bikes like the XT250, they stuck around because they just worked. Meanwhile, brands like KTM showed up with street legal dirt bikes like the EXC series, aimed at riders who wanted maximum off-road performance and didn't mind a little extra maintenance. Today, dual sports are still doing what they've always done best. Bikes like the Honda CRF 300L or the old faithful DR650 aren't trying to impress anyone on spec sheets. They're about freedom. One bike, one key, and no real plan. Pavement, dirt, gravel, trails, it's all fair game. That's the dual sport in a nutshell. Not perfect at anything, but capable of almost everything. All right, we got her up on the stand here. Let's start looking around. I think it might need a new seat. Oh, it's not so bad right there or there, but somewhere in here, I feel like it probably needs to be redone. Broken. Those are not factory. Those are definitely, pretty sure they're supposed to be square back here. Factory ones are broken. The others, yep, broken. All right, well, exhaust is complete. Looks good. Motor is complete. It's a pretty complete looking little cycle here. So the tank is metal. Yep. Metal indented. We can clean that up. But I don't think it's too rusty down in there. Whoop, varnish. Yep, we're going to close that up because that's going to stink. Ooh, I already smell it. Okay. Someone's painting a deck. What do we got here? 9,263.6. There we go. Yeah. That is seized. Cool. There you go. That's the factory square. I did already pull this front cover off and take out the ignition because it didn't have a key. So I took that down to the locksmith to get a key made for it right away before I even messed with it. Because obviously I'm not really going to be able to do anything unless I have a key. So that's the one thing I really did look at right away, but I really haven't gone over the bike too much. Fender. This was so dry rotted that when we pulled it off the truck, it bumped the ground and it snapped right off. So we're going to see what we can do about that. The front and rear brakes actually worked, so that's good. It's a 250R. RFVC. They're very proud of this. Well, RFVC stands for radial four-valve combustion. It was an innovative single-cylinder design used in many Honda dirt bikes, XR and XL series. The four valves, two intake, two exhaust, were arranged in the cylinder head, splaying outward. Think of it like they're on top of a ball, and you set them up in a square, so they're all pointing in a different direction. That arrangement allowed for a very efficient, shallow, hemispherical combustion chamber and a centralized spark plug location. The design maximized valve size for better airflow, intake and exhaust efficiency, and it promoted rapid combustion, increasing both horsepower and torque. Cool engine, man. Dual carb, dual exhaust, single cylinder, 250. So I expect this thing to pull wheelies in fifth. Pretty complete on the motor, though. Everything looks like it's good there. Side covers. Yep, sure.
This is cool. It's got the toolbox, factory toolbox. I'm hoping there's tools in there. We'll see if when we get that key made, if it's the same key for this, but kind of sounds like something's in there. This is faded, but it's not dry rod. That's good. Pretty good all the way down there. Not too shabby. I think that's facing the wrong way. Probably should go that way. It's a shame these tires. This is probably a brand new tire when they parked it. I can see their ribbing, a little, all that stuff, but it's completely dry rotted. But a brand, I mean, that's a brand new tire. So much meat on that. It's hardly even anywhere. Look at that. What a shame. But we'll do something about that. Shocks are solid as a rock up front. Frozen stiff. So we're going to be doing that. Same with the rear tire. Look at the meat on that thing. I mean, it's brand new. Brand new. But not brand new. Let's stick a finger right through that. But it's got little plasticky doodahs and thingaroonies on it. That's good. What's cool about these bikes is this strap actually holds the seat on. A lot of them are decorative anymore, but these, yeah, you gotta unbolt it. You don't unbolt it from one side to the other, you cannot take that seat off. That's pretty cool. I don't know. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's start stripping it down, and we'll start messing with everything and see what we got. All right, so the first thing I want to do is get the seat off. Obviously, we know that needs to be replaced. So on this little strap that goes across that you see here actually holds the seat down. Most of them are like a cosmetic type deal where they're bolted to the under part of the seat. But on this, you do have to pull the side covers off. So we'll get in there, and then there is a little, I think it's a 13 mil bolt. Yep. Pull the covers off. We'll set these aside. Where won't they get broken? Over here. They'll probably get broken over there. Anyway, okay, the bolt's already out. But that's okay. It's not broken. It's already out. I like that. Anyway, that has to come up. And then you have two bolts under the rear. Pop those off really quick. And those are going to be 12s. And you'll see the plastic bolted to the frame. Put those aside. And the seat should. There we go. Come on. There we go. You see the bolt on that side. We got a battery in there. We got webs for days. That's pretty. It's a 10 mil. All right, easy. So a bolt that goes through that too. Is it busted off or is it just... Nope, just missing. It goes right there. All right, cool. Those are easy to find. We can always get bolts. Maybe get in here with a vacuum, suck up all this nasty. I'm willing to bet that that battery is no good. But another 10 mil, pop that off. I'm going to zip a couple of these things along. Bear with me. We'll get it stripped down and get a closer look at what we got going on. air box opened up. We'll probably pull this out because I'm pretty sure we're going to need to get those carbs off. All right. Dig in there. All right. Good. That's tight. Dad, I know where all the attic insulation went. Good Lord, Mouse House. Oh. There's probably something dead in there. Son of let me get you in here on that one. Come on. Look at that. That is Mom's backyard cushion with some fiberglass insulation and rear seat foam from a 1948 Ford. Yeah, that's good. And lots of mouse poop. Mouse poop everywhere. Okay. How do you take that out? I don't. Oh, that just flips up. Look at that. That is. How convenient. All right, let's clean that out. I see there's dead bat wings in there. That belongs to Mothzilla. What is. Okay. You know what kills all that? Brake clean. Brake clean. Tons of brake clean. Yeah. Kills 99.9% of every single thing that you've ever seen in the world. Lysol. This is how we survived growing up. Well, no dead bodies were found in the making this so far, which is good. I'm going to jump the ignition wire while we're waiting for the key to be made. I'm going to spray it on the carb and free up the linkage the best I can and see if I can get that going and see if we have spark. It's probably my best bet right now. I just want to see what I'm working with, how far into it we are, and how bad it's going to be. And might as well do that. But the carb, okay, I can feel this. The throttle moves a little bit, so I know the cable's not seized. It might be seized down here. So I'm just going to try and clean up down here a little bit. I'm definitely going to pull these carbs, and we're going to rebuild them. The tank is full of deck stain, and it was on. So the carbs are probably full of the same. But I'm going to try and clean them up on the outside the best I can and free them up over there. And then we're going to pull them off and it'll make rebuilding a little bit easier. Looks like only the left one is opening. So that right one's probably sees up pretty good. See if it's just something stuck on the outside, but it's probably not. Like I said, this thing's been laying and nasty and hanging out. These carbs are gonna need love. That is something that is pretty much any time a bike sits for a long time, it's gonna need the carbs cleaned, new gaskets, and all that jazz. But the nice part is it's pretty easy to do. There's nothing crazy about it. We saw that a couple times now. It's working the left carb, but the right side is stuck. So as I hit that, it doesn't open up the second carb. Expected, nothing crazy. All right. Well, got all this blown out, kind of cleaned up a little bit. I got some throttle, not all the way. We're definitely going to have to get in there and clean up these carbs really good. Really sticking on this side. And I think that's because the bike was laid over on that side. This is the one that got all the water. Let's check the oil. What kind of oil is in here? It's actually pretty full. I've been letting it sit upright for a while. So, okay, that's not death black, so that's good. Okay, all right. Doesn't smell like gas. Believe me, I would know with that turpentine that's in there, which is actually kind of amazing. But, you know, the ignition switch is not back yet. But I looked at the wiring diagram. If you connect red to green, that is ignition on. Red to green, ignition on. So we should have, well, we should have spark if everything is okay. So we've got these beautiful little, see that, this is nuts. And we're gonna slide this in there. Let's see if we get any spark out of that. Probably not gonna be able to get you to see that. Let's just see. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Right away. Oh, that's excellent. Okay. We're gonna have spark. All I was doing there, spark plug grounds to the head. All of this bare metal and everything up here. If you put the electrode of the spark plug against that, or of the wire against that, and you crank it, you should get a spark. It should arc in there. So that did right away. I could see it. So that's beautiful. Cool. All right. So ignition is on. It should at least pop off a little bit. Now there's oil in there. I did crank it over a bunch of times. I'll keep going without, just trying to get oil pressure, get that oil kicked up in there because it's been sitting a while. What if we just put a little bit of starter fluid in there? You got to use good starter fluid though, legit starter fluid. You don't want to throw in carb cleaner or brake clean. Use a lubricating starter fluid, or throw a 2-cycle mix in there, which is okay too. A lot of people do that 2-cycle mix, spray it up in there, lube that top end so it's not just frying the rings and pistons all the way down. But stuff like this blaster starting fluid, it lubricates the top end while you're doing it. So. And you're only going to pop it off. You're not trying to run it and rev it to its max. See if we just get a little bit of something out of it. And if we do, then you know that we can move forward on what we're messing with. If it just makes all these kind of crazy noises and locks up right away and is jacked, well, then we know we're going to have a major rebuild. But this feels really good with the compression when I kick it. So I'm comfortable with this. I don't know. Let's see what happens. Well, all right. There you go. It's that easy. That sounded pretty good. I didn't hear any crazy knocking or anything. I think we're good to move forward and put some money in this thing. Already got a little late last night, so picking it back up today. I'm going to go ahead and see if we can pull the airbox off and get down to these carbs, unhook everything in here, pull those off and see what they look like. And then with all that up, I think I'll plug this up and try and maybe give her a little wash. We got a next couple of warm days here for the next week, which is awesome. We're back in the 60s. So I don't know. We'll try that. Unfortunately, the boot, this thing had just dry rotted so much. Went on like that. There we go. It just busted right off. So this is shot. Gonna need to get a whole new intake boot set. Intake manifold boot kit thing stuff. Rubber, metal, mount. Whatever it's freaking called. We'll find one. We got the twin carbs here. They don't look too bad on the outside. Everything looks pretty nice. I thought that this one was the one that was seized, but it's actually this one. So the link is in between here. And when you try and activate this, this is stuck. So we'll throw that in the cleaner, pull this all apart, get it cleaned up, and we got a rebuild kit coming on the way. But I also was able to take off the toolbox. And I'm excited. There's stuff in it. So let's go through this. All right, Bradford. Nothing illegal. Please don't be anything illegal in here. All right, we got tools. Okay. Screwdriver handle. Let's see. Okay, all right. Ooh, nice. Spark plug tool. That's good because honestly, that spark plug is kind of a pain in the butt with a regular socket or with a regular spark plug socket. This is for the screwdriver. We've got, look at that cute little adjustable crescent wrench. Extra spark plug. I mean, you got to have that while you're driving around in case you foul out yours, you know, you're going to change the spark plug around. Oh, look at their little wrench. Or pliers. Heck yeah, that one must go on the other side. And then there's the other rest of the tools for the screwdriver. And paper. There's papers in here. Ooh. Got insurance card. I won't show any of the information on that. And the title and registration. 1986 Honda X6250R. This registration was from 2010. Cost $6 in tax. Oh wait, $9.34. New tax. And regular service $21. Property tax $6. Private property tax $6.72. DMV monitor. Man, they find charges for everything. $37.72. All right. Well, we'll put that all nice together and keep all that in there, and I'll give him this because that might help him with his registration if he needs some info. We'll get this box all cleaned up. Cool. I love stuff like that. That's pretty neat. Well, we busted open the carbs. This side was bone dry. A little sticky down in there. And then the other side, so this would have been the fuel side that directly comes in from the petcock, is definitely filled with this awesome green sauce. Looks like Ecto Cooler. You remember that stuff? Ecto Cooler. It's like dirty Ecto Cooler. I'd probably still drink it. It smells like death. My head is in a jar of Dextane. Oh, it's worse than Dex. This is bad. It stinks. My wife's going to shoot me. I need to get this outside and spray this out real quick. Look at that googly down in there. Pretty nasty. But I don't see corrosion and real bad stuff in here. So I think these will clean up really nicely. These look pretty good, man. Happy about that. We just need to get the new boots. So we'll spray this down with some carb cleaner, all that jazz, and then we're going to throw it right in the ultrasonic cleaner and let that simmer for a little bit in a nice warm bath. And I think we'll be good. Hopefully. That stinks. Okay, hopefully the rebuild kit gets here in the next day or two. Well, some unfortunate news. Everything else was coming apart pretty good, except for the idle mixture screw. It was jammed in there, stuck in there. I couldn't get it out. Of course, it was all stripped. The edge of it was broken off. I tried to back it out with a pair of pliers, and it just snapped. It was so brittle and destroyed. What I ended up having to do is get in there and drill it out, and you can see what's left of it here. You got to be very careful. I centered it. I brought it down just a little bit, enough for me to get down to the spring, and I'll show you what this is comprised of here in a minute. And you want to be careful not to go too far. As you can see, I did not hit the base where the needle goes into, so we know that that's fully intact down there. So you just got to be really careful, take it slow if you ever have to do that. But basically what this port is and why it's important. This is the idle mixture screw. Now there's two types. You'll either have one that controls air or one that controls fuel. The typical rule of thumb is if it's on the engine side, it's going to control fuel. If it's on the intake side or the air filter side, it's going to control air. And if I swing this over the side, you will see that this is on the air intake boot side. That's an air control mixture. And there's a hole right in here. And what this is going to do is that needle's going to go down in here and it's going to adjust the amount of airflow, allowing for the amount of fuel that's going to get sucked up in your jet. And it's a pretty simple concept. Another way to tell if it's air or fuel is generally it'll be a blunt end here if it's for air. Fuel will be a much sharper needle because it's actually having to stop fuel. So now what we'll do is we'll put the new jet in there, and what this is adjusting is blocking air or allowing more air or less air to come in as you adjust it. And that spring will sit down in there. Now, after I drilled it out, I had a lot of brass. Most of these little fittings are going to be made out of brass. Sometimes you'll see them steel, but mostly brass. And I had a lot left over in here. So what I had to do is get in there with a tap. Most of these are going to be a 6mm, but they're not 6 by 1.0, which is the most common size that you see in a lot of your small bolts for motorcycles. These are actually going to be a 6 by 1.75. It's a very fine thread. If I'm reaming out threads or cleaning out threads, sometimes I will put it on a drill. This you definitely don't want to do that, because you want to make sure that you don't go in too fast where you're going to crack any of this aluminum here or bottom it out and destroy the seat that needle has to sit into. So very carefully, you're going to come in here with the tool and just little bits at a time, clean it out, back it back out, screw it in, back it back out, until you have good threads all over. Back it back out, clean off all your debris, and go back in. I like to use what's called 3-in-1 oil. This is a typical household oil, simple thing. I like to put this on almost as a cutting oil. So you put a little dab on the top like this. And I've got this one mostly cleaned out already, just making sure I could get in there. But then you bring it in. Back it back out. Bring it in, just cut a little bit. Back it back out. Do that a couple times, and then you're going to come back out nice and slow, and you'll see that you have some metal filings, metal shavings that got caught there. Clean those off, a little more oil, and keep going until your threads feel good, and you can thread this in nice and smooth all the way down. Once it bottoms out, don't keep going. Look at how far you're going in, and then compare that to how deep the port is, so that way you're not destroying that seat. And then I'll get in there with some compressed air. I like to blow from both sides, clean it all out, and then we can go ahead and put our new spring in along with the new needle. Pretty easy concept, but you just got to take your time on it, be really careful. If you do destroy this port down here, you're going to have a really difficult time getting that idle mixture right, because you're always going to be letting air in if it can't seat properly. Get in here with some air. Blow back out through the port to get everything to come out this end. Watch your eyes, make sure you're not blowing it back in your face. And then you can blow a little this way. I always like to start on this side, because if I do get any metal shavings down there, I don't want them to get, if I blow this way, I have more of a chance of it blowing down into the ports. Where this is the path of least resistance, I'm going to blow a lot of the schmutz. You know, your threads are all right here. That's where I'm cutting. I'm going to get that out versus blowing it into the ports. So I like to start on this side, blow it out nice and clean, and then go back and forth. Now look down in that port. Look at those threads. They look nice. Go ahead and put, a lot of times I'll just put the spring right on the screw. Set it down in there. Small flathead. Let's see if those take. Beautiful. We'll put it all the way in until it seats. about there, and then we'll go ahead and back off half and 1 to start. We'll go about 1 turn out, and really that's easy enough. Just look at the slot, spin it about 180. That'll be half a turn, another 180. And then if you look down in your port, you can see that fitting came all the way through. It's looking pretty good. So once we get that back on the bike, we'll go ahead and make our small adjustments, fine tune it. One might be perfect. We don't know. We'll see. Anyway, I'm going to throw this back over on the bench, replace these upper gaskets, show you the jets we're using, and then pop this back together. All right, before we dive too much deeper into this, we've got our screw in. We're good to go there. This is a dual carb setup for a single cylinder 250. So what we have is a primary carb and a secondary, or main and a secondary carb. So though the rebuild kit comes with 2 of everything, you're not going to use 2 of everything. This side has the pilot jet, or the air mixture screw. This side will not, even though it comes with it. You'll notice that the hole is there. There's no threading in there. And then the factory port is actually blocked off completely. So not used because it's not needed. This is a secondary. This is not going to affect your idle. This one will. So that's set up there. You'll see how this carb setup works is as I begin to open, I get up to about here and I'm just going to start feeling resistance. That is getting ready to begin opening the secondary carb. So I come about halfway, and then you'll notice that as I come to full throttle here, I will automatically go to full throttle on the secondary. So this is basically a half to full. Half throttle, full throttle, wide open on the secondary. Now there's a couple other parts that are going to do the same thing here. I'm only going to need one because I have a pilot jet. The main carb is going to have your pilot. That is going to slide right down in here. This one has the same hole, but there's no threading, and it's blocked off at the base. You'll see. So you don't have to worry about it. Now, weirdly enough, this kit does not come with a new pilot jet. So just make sure you get down in here. I have the old guitar string method, Use this to poke out all the holes, clean it out, soak it in some carb cleaner, brake clean, whatever. These are great to keep around, keep on yourself for cleaning out those little ports. Now, I've already done this one. It's nice and clean. Looks great all the way through. So we're going to go ahead and drop that into our primary carb. Flathead screwdriver. And you're going to turn it in until it seats. Do not crank these in. Just until you get that boom resistance, and bam, done. You're good. That's in there. Now, you do have 2 main jets. However, your primary is going to be a different size main jet than your secondary. For this model, it calls for about 100, 102 as your main jet. You're going to look at the 2 jets that come in here. You're going to have your needle seat and then your main jet, which screws into the top. They come with 2 different ones here. We've got in this kit a 102, which is good. And then the other one is a 118. Now, there's no way I don't think I'm going to be able to get that on the camera, but you'll see it printed right on the side. So what we'll do is put the 102 on the main and the 118 on the secondary. So it's 118 to 122 for your secondary is what they call for here. We'll see what the 118 does, see how that works. It's the only one I have other than the 102. So we'll throw that together, and I guess we just kind of start from there. So make sure we get the 102 over here and the 118 on your secondary carb. And then we tweak those down. It takes a 7 mil. And again, you don't have to crank them, just a nice little seat. Remember, they're brass. So you're going brass to aluminum. A little tweak like that's going to keep those in just fine. And then these are just a flathead. We'll make sure they're cinched on the top and golden. So again, we have a 102 on the main, a 118 on the secondary. From here on out, everything else is pretty much the same for both carbs. We will put our floats back in. They come with a new float needle with the Viton tip. This style of carb does not have a brass fitting for the float needle seat. Some do. You can unscrew them, take them out. Some have a little set screw. This is going to be just aluminum built into the body. One of the things you can do to clean those out, and these are actually pretty good looking, but I might throw some down there just to make sure, is take some metal polish on a cotton swab, stick it down in there, throw it on a drill, and buff out the base of these seats in here until they're nice and clean looking and shiny. Yeah, let's go ahead and show you that. Might as well. All right, so simple enough. We've got some Brasso, cotton swab on a drill, and all we're going to do is put the metal polish on the tip of the cotton swab, Q-tip, whatever you call them from where you're from. All right, little on the tip of the cotton swab, and just take it down in there. Spit it out. What this is going to do is clean and polish that seat so that Viton tip can sit there. And this is great for brass tip as well. But it just gives a nice, polished, clean surface for that seat. And you just turn the swab around, put in the clean side, and do it again. And, the more the merrier. Get in there, clean it up really nicely, make sure those seat well. Once we get the float bowls back on, I'm going to show you how to adjust and set float height. It's very important. Another important part, now that we got the floats in there, you can see how one's got some spring to it. The other one's base. It's just setting right against the base. What we're going to do is adjust the float height. Pretty simple. You do that by adjusting this little metal tang that comes off where the float needle attaches to. It slides onto that, and this is made to be bent up and down for adjustment. And adjusting this is pretty easy. It can be a little tedious at times. Here's how I like to do it. I'm going to hold the carburetor upside down at about a 45-degree angle. And then what I'm going to do is, you got to look up the adjustments. So on these older Keihin, however you're supposed to pronounce it, they have a square style float, and then a lot of new ones, it's more round. So this is a square style, and a lot of times when you look it up, it'll tell you older style, older model. They call for about 18.5 millimeter from the base, the gasket base, right here, to the highest point of the carb as it rests. Or, of the float as it rests. Take my little caliper, and sometimes they come with tools that you can use for this. And we're going to kind of line that up to the highest point. And I'm at 18.45, and that's dead on. That one looks good. So it makes sense why that one's floating. Now I'll flip it over to the other side. I'm going to say this one is pretty much fully compressed. There's no play in it once it's down. Same thing. I've got it locked down, so I'm going to look at this. And yeah, we're way, way low from that gasket base. So pretty simple. What we're going to do is bend this tang, lift it up a little bit, and we're going to want to push that down. That's going to raise your float bowl. Use my little tool here and poke that out. What I'm talking about is this little tab right here in the center. Your float needle has a little wire mounted to the top of it, and it slides onto this, and it'll allow it to hang there. Now the top of that needle floats against this tang, and I can see it looks like it's kind of bent up already, so we're going to want to bend this down slightly. And the lower you bend this, the higher that the float is going to sit in the float bowl. Sometimes it can be a little tricky to get on. You want to make sure that you're not warping and bending the frame of the float bowl. And we just tweak it down a little bit. Little bits at a time, don't go nuts. And then you're going to reset the needle in. Now you can do that without pulling it apart. I just wanted to show you. So from here on out, I'll keep it together and kind of tweak it until it sits the way I want it to. Still pretty low. These are actually really stout ones, so that's good because they're made to be made to be adjusted. Now I'm starting to get a little more spring in there. That's good. What you want to make sure is that these are staying even on both sides, that we're not twisting them out of whack. And now we got some spring in there, you'll see. Much difference. It's not bottomed out already. We'll go ahead and get back in here. 18.5 on the caliper to the highest point, and that is, oh, yeah, I think we got it right off the bat. Looking pretty good. So that's how you do that. Pretty simple. And when everything looks good and we're not fully compressed, see, if I put all the weight on, it's going to start compressing the spring. So I want about that 45 degree when I'm taking that measurement, not compressed in. And check it a couple times, get in there, make sure it looks good. But yeah, we're looking real good there. Now, why that is so important is if you don't do that and it's fully bottomed out, your carb bowl is going to overflow. So as you're sitting there and you have your fuel turned on, the fuel's going to come in and it's never going to allow this to sit properly. And then you're just going to start getting fuel pouring out of the overflow or flood your motor. So very, very, very important. So once you get that right, we're pretty much good. We'll go ahead and put the floats back on, or float bowls back on, and we're pretty much set to put this back on the bike. The big thing I'm really all about on Tank Slap is you don't have to drop thousands and thousands of dollars to do a full renovation on a motorcycle. If you got to think about what you're using it for. In this case, you know, Brad wants to take this thing down to the fishing hole, have fun, get it dirty. If we did a full rebuild and made everything factory fresh and brand new, all that money that you would spend, especially getting into these older models now, where it's getting really hard to find these parts, it's just not worth it. So I'm going to show you a couple of tips and tricks that I've been using over the years to just kind of refresh everything, make it look half decent. There's no reason you can't have a half decent fishing motorcycle. It's a really weird thing to say, but that's what he wants for. Anyway, we're going to bring you in here, show you a couple things that we're going to do with some of these controls, get everything kind of cleaned up, talk about these faded plastics and things you can do to make those permanently look good again. And man, it is freaking windy outside. That is 70 mile per hour wind gusts today, they said. So I'll be cutting up trees tomorrow. Awesome. So cool. Anyway, let's get back into doing this. So for example, let's talk about the handlebars and your little dash assembly. This is something you got to stare at the whole time. These are nice white painted bars with some rust that kind of got down in some cracks and splits in the paint. And it's looking pretty ugly, right? And then we've got faded out plastics from sitting out in the sun, rust down in the chrome here. That's something you have to look at the whole time when you're riding. So kind of nice to clean that up a little bit. And I think there's something we can do with it. However, you know, yeah, you can get in there, you can grind this all down, clean it up, and either paint it or polish it. But, you know, this paint is still good. It's just little sections of it that aren't. And if you go spray painting, it's just going to peel off and be kind of junk in a year. So, or we could, you know, obviously use automotive paint and restore it to factory spec. But we're not playing that game this time. So I'm going to get in here with some rust remover. This stuff is, I think, pretty new. I used to use a gel stuff from Rust-Oleum. I went down the Home Depot and this is what they had. So we're going to try this out for the first time and see what this does. But it's Rust Aid is about $12 a bottle. Nothing too crazy. I don't even know what. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. So the other stuff was a gel. This is a liquid. So I'm not sure how I feel about it already, but let's just test a little spot over here. And the main goal is just to kill that rust that's there. Get rid of all the excess rust that's laying around. Instead of pulling this all the way apart, stripping it all the way down, cleaning it up. Again, he's got a bike here that he wants to use. It's going to get dirty. If I made it look perfect, he'd want to put it in his living room instead of going to use it. And that's not the purpose of a motorcycle. So we'll let that sit maybe 10, 15 minutes, and we'll come back and see what that looks like after. All that down there is simmering and sauteing. We're going to look at some of these plastic pieces. So the switches on this seem to be working okay. I'm probably going to end up getting in here and just cleaning them up a little bit more, spraying with contact, and we'll do that a little bit later. But let's see if we can't bring some of this plastic back around just to look a little bit nicer before we take it apart, because I'm going to soak it down in some, oops, we got 3-in-1 oil. I'll just dab that on there a little bit. Now this is not what's going to make it pretty again, but this is what I'm going to use to try and just clean it. I don't want to put any harsh chemicals on here, spray clean, any stuff like that, because obviously it's plastic, so we don't know what it's going to do to it. But I'm going to scrub this up. And yeah, I guess you could use soap and water if you're going to blow it all out and dry it, but the reason I use the oil is that I don't have to worry about rust. Those contacts getting wet and staying wet inside. But again, once I do this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm waiting on that battery to get here. When the battery gets here, I'm going to hook everything up and we'll start checking for continuity on everything and seeing what works and what doesn't. And if I do have to get in here and clean this up on the inside with some contact cleaner, I will. But right now I'm looking cosmetic. So I'm going to try and scrub this down, get all that gunk out, years of dirt and build up. And this is the trial and error stuff, you know. A lot of people don't like, oh, that's all nasty and faded, I'm just going to go ahead and buy a new one. But I've learned over the years that you can make stuff come back pretty easily. Just put a little bit of effort into it. Now, on the same note, I'm not going to bash you if you just want to go out and buy a new one, because it is what it is. It's whatever your budget says. But even though I'm told, don't worry about it, just spend whatever money you need, I'm going to try and save as much money as possible on this. So I'm going to wipe all that down. I got all the dirt, all the gunk out. Throw some compressed air in there. Compressed air is a beautiful thing to have. Contact cleaner is generally okay on most plastics. You can get that in there. It dries extremely fast. Just wanted to see if I can bring some color back to this gray. We have to do that separately. Figure that out. Oh yeah, look at that already. It's just, now she's snapping back. So just blowing that in there, and then, like I said, we're gonna get into this in a bit. I'll get some contact cleaner in there though. And like I said, this stuff is pretty good on. You're not going to melt plastics with contact cleaner. It dries so fast, it really doesn't have enough time to get in there and mess anything up. There we go. Look at that. She's returning to center. Button off, return to center. All right, cool. So sometimes that's all you need. One more time, I'll just get in there and blast it. Now, putting the oil and doing some of that did darken it up a little bit, but give yourself a heat gun. Nice high setting. I've done this with a torch before, but I generally only do that on larger plastic areas. If I'm doing something small here that has wiring and all that stuff, I'll stick with a heat gun. Let it warm up, let it get nice and hot. What we're going to do is we're going to get in here, get kind of in there real close, and back off. Don't go too much in one spot. You will absolutely warp the plastic. Cool it off a little bit, come back in here, get close, and you want to see the red reflection on the switch, just barely. And you're going to start seeing it turn black, or darker at least. We're really just kind of melting the top just slightly to get rid of all that old looking garbage. So if you use those coatings and those things you can put on them, really they're just a mask, a cover up. This will actually kind of melt the plastic right back into being clean looking again. It won't just wash off or wear off. Like I say, you do have to be careful though, because you don't want to just overburn it. When you do that, you're going to warp stuff. Things aren't going to be right. This one is pretty faded. Let's see if we can bring it back around a little bit. But the more we clean that up there and do that, the easier it is to come in, scrub it down again. We'll let that cool off and blacken this up a little bit, maybe wet sand it a little bit too. We can do all sorts of things that are going to clean that up a little bit more. But now look at that. My switch is automatically centering. I mean, it is back to the center before I let go. These switches are functioning now. A little bit of heat in there to make them do their thing. And then I can cut out a little piece for that. Make that white again, which would be good. Once that cools down, we need to get in there again with some oil. And I'm going to start soaking that 3-in-1 oil into this and then heating it again. And then soak and then heat. I'm going to do that several times to get some moisture back into this plastic. And I think we can bring that back around to where it doesn't look like it's about to snap in half. And get all that gray, dull, horrible plastic out of there. And that's my little trick for that. So hopefully it works out good on this. And if it does, I will show you. If it doesn't, I'll pretend it never happened and just cut this right out of the clip. Well, back to our rust here. I'm just wiping off all that excess, getting that nasty out of there. And look at the difference. I mean, yeah, it's not perfect. It's got some nicks. But all that rust is gone. These are down the bare metal. And look at this side. So you have a couple options. You can keep it like that and just make sure you're drying it all the time. You can get in here with some white touch-up paint and just touch up all those spots. Or maybe a little bit of clear coat and just seal it. It looks pretty good. I mean, that's nice. I could stare at that. I don't want to see that. So we'll figure out what we're going to do and how far he wants to go with it too. I think he's going to be pretty surprised when he gets this bike back around. But we're going to go over through the whole rest of this and spray down all these little rust spots and joints and get them all cleaned up like that. And then see if we can't find a white that's pretty close. And I think we'll just go ahead and touch up some of those spots to help prevent them from rusting in the future. Well, it's just warm enough for me to go ahead and give this thing a good spray down. Last week we were in the sevens, single digits. It's 52 today with high winds. I'm okay with that. We're going to spray this down, get it cleaned up, get it back inside. And I'm going to use that rust remover out here because really what you're supposed to do is wash it off. You want to get all that water in there to kill any of that acid from keeping at the metal. But a good wipe down spray is good too as well. I'm going to spray that a little bit out here, do some stuff, and see what we can get cleaned up. But now I'm struggling to get this boot between the carb and the air cleaner back on because this rubber is hardened up pretty good from laying on its side. And you can see this is the sun bleached side. I have a trick for this, but I have to run to the store and get a couple things. So we're going to do that tomorrow. I'm going to show you how we can soften this back up and hopefully make it a little more pliable and get it to stretch back in there and sit okay. Now, the other side I have on, it didn't see as much sunlight as this did because it was laying on its side. So But yeah, soon it won't do that. Well, here's a pretty handy trick when I have these old rubber pieces that have sat out in the sun, become pretty much rock solid. It's really hard to clamp these down to squeeze them in where they need to go. Now, like I showed you earlier, this is the side that laid up in the sun, so it got a lot of heat damage here, and you can see that in the plastic here. And this was actually covered, and the back half of this isn't bad. It's soft enough that I can squeeze it back into the fitting, make it usable there, but this side is just hard as a rock. So I'm going to show you a little trick. There's a couple different things you can do to put these boots and things like this back on. You can heat them up with a heat gun. I've seen people boil them in water for a little bit, get everything softened up. But those are temporary solutions. As soon as it cools down and dries, it's going to get hard again. And you'll see I can't even squeeze that. So this side is pretty decently pliable, like I was saying earlier, and I don't have a ton of the wintergreen oil. Now it's not impossible to find. You can order it online all day long, but it's not. It's where I live. There's no grocery stores or any markets around here that sell this stuff. But I got the Green Health wintergreen oil. This is pricey. It's this little bottle was I think $16.99. I think I got it on Amazon if I remember. The mixture that you're going to do here is a 3-to-1 mix of 91% isopropyl alcohol to 1 part wintergreen oil. So because I don't have enough to do the whole part and make this big, huge bath for it. I really just want to get the end of this. So I picked a container where I can slide this boot down into it, and it's going to soak the back end where I really need it to soften up. And I think we can get away with that. So I already put 1 cup of isopropyl alcohol in there. I think I probably have 1/3 cup about left in this. Yep, that's pretty much what's left in the bottle. Smells good, at least. Now, unfortunately, I don't know any other real uses for this other than this, so I don't keep a ton on hand. But that'll be enough for this. We're going to let that mix up a little bit. Now, I already went ahead and just scrubbed this boot down, so I don't want any extra grease and oil in there. Dawn dish soap, scrub it up in the sink, no big deal. I'm going to slide this down in here, and I get about, I would say, almost 1/3 of the way up. Then we're going to cover it. Now, this process does take some time. And like I said, the wintergreen oil is a bit pricey. So you really need to look at your cost versus benefit. If you can buy a brand new boot at a decent price, under $15, you're probably good there. But when you're finding older stuff like this, if they're hard to get, where they want an arm and a leg for them, this is a great way to get it just to soften up. Probably gonna let this sit for a couple of days. Every once in a while, I'll just shake it up a little bit, and then we'll check on it. But within a couple of days, it's going to be pretty soft and definitely usable. I've had the part soaking for a couple of days now. I'm going to open her up. I only put a little bit in here because I really wanted to get that opening soft. But every couple hours or so, I'd go in here and I'd shake it up and get it all over. So let's see how that came out. Now, I am wearing gloves, not necessarily because this stuff is going to hurt me, but it's awfully potent. That wintergreen oil, once it gets on your hands, you're going to smell like a peppermint for the next week. So it's very strong odor in here as it is. At least it's pleasant, but it looks like it softened it up really well. Now, the nice thing about wintergreen oil that's different than soaking in ATF or other oils and fluids like that is this won't sweat back out. So now that it's soft like this, it's going to stay soft for a pretty long time. I've seen people put it in ATF or power steering fluid or things like that. The problem is once you pull it back out and it warms up, you start seeing it sweat back out. But yeah, that's looking pretty good. Now it does swell up a little bit, but I think that'll be okay for our situation because it had shrunk. All right, here we are a couple days later. I'm getting ready to put this on. So I did let it sit probably about 3 days while I was taking care of some other parts, some other things. And as you'll see, still nice and pliable. No sweating, no oils coming back out. It's going to remain that way. So it's not snake oil. Really great little trick. I learned that a few years back, and all the stuff that I have soaked in that never hardened back up. So it's science and stuff or things. I don't know, but it works, man. There we go. Bolted right back in. Nice and flexible. Got right up over the carburetor, right into the airbox. Beautiful. So there you go. We went ahead and got the throttle tube off. We're going to get in here and check out these cables. Now, they did work with it. Everything seemed a little bit tight, but they look pretty good. Important thing here is go ahead and lube them up. Always make sure you're taking care of the cables. So while we have it off, we'll do that. Get yourself some good cable lube. Moose Racing. This stuff works really good. It smells kind of nice too. You can also get one of these, which is I don't remember if this is from Motion Pro or not, but they sell them. And basically, it's a tool to help you get pressure down the tube instead of just using gravity to lube the cables. So what it'll do is as you cinch it down on the end, it'll seal up this end. There's a little hole right here. Make sure we can actually see what I'm looking at. Yes, you can. There's a little hole right here that will allow you to take the nozzle and put it directly in. These are great tools to have. Like I said, what this will do is force feed the fluid all the way through. So you're just going to spray it a little bit. It might come out of the top a little bit there, but after a couple sprays, you will notice that's going to start dripping down by the throttle. If it comes out too much, just tighten it down a little bit more. And yeah, it is coming out of the bottom a little bit. You're going to have that. And we'll just let that sit for a while. It's okay to make a little bit of a mess. Now, that was working so well that if you notice, it was actually coming out of the bottom of the fitting here as well. So I was just wrapping my finger around that to get a lot more of the pressure to go down the cable. But I can see it dripping out of the end of the cable already. And we'll do all the cables on the bike like that. And that'll give you a much better throttle response, make it feel a lot nicer. And that's going to make a huge difference. And while we got that off, let's go ahead and clean up handlebars underneath the throttle tube a little bit here. Let that soak in there. All right, well, we got the battery in, all charged up, ready to rock. Routed the new tube down here, and let's see how good the locksmith did. Let's flick this switch up here and see if she has any power. Oh, yeah. Oh, and the neutral light's on. Tail light is on. How about turn signals? Nothing. Oh, that's right. I don't think the headlight on this comes on unless it's running. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it. If I kickstart it, you'll see the light come up. Let's try it out. Oh, that was compression. Light come on? Yeah, light's coming on there. Okay, headlight's good. How about high beam? Yep, high beam too. All right, cool. All right, well, we got our neutral light on. We got the back light for the speedometer is working. Tail light works. Turn signals aren't, but that could be a couple different things. So why don't we go through that? For one, these are aftermarket. I wonder if maybe, I hate when I sigh like that. Sorry for that. I wonder if they ever really did work. These, I think, are LED, and the front ones aren't. A lot of times people don't realize when they start putting LED stuff on older style bikes, you need to change over the relay to an LED relay or it will not flash. That's not always the case, but something to look at. Let's just go ahead and get these rear lights replaced. I ordered some. They came in. They match the fronts. We'll do the backs for now because if I don't have to replace the fronts, I'll leave them as spares. But factory, they were supposed to be all square. So I know these are definitely a aftermarket deal. Looking good. Get in here. Yes, square, nice looking. What do you say? Front, rear, does it matter? No, I think they're all the same. All right, let's go ahead and get these mounted up. I think it'll be pretty simple. We'll throw them on there and see what happens after that. All right, so as I started taking this apart, what I discovered was they made a little link between the new lights because they were different bullet size connectors. So they had to adapt that to the original one. So they made this little link. And I'll tell you what, if anybody knows me, I cannot stand crimp-on connectors. They are horrible. I would never, in a pinch, they get you home, sure. But you got to replace it and solder it right away. I cannot stand this stuff. These fall off, they break, they pop off all the time, make horrible connections. So to have these on a motorcycle, no go. So what I'm going to do is get in here and slice off this side, put on new bullet style here, solder them in. I'm going to cut off the plastic on this, and then I'm going to solder these two and put some heat shrink over them, and then heat shrink this whole tube and make a nice little adapter that'll work for our new ones. So it can be plug and play. If you need to replace the new ones, buy new ones, go ahead and plug them right. All right, tank's on, fuel's in. Looks like it's getting down into the bowl, into the filter there. That looks good. No leaks. All right, cool. Let's get that choke on. All right. Well, what do we do? This? No way. No way. No way. That easy. I should probably turn the choke back off. Whew. Let that air out a little bit. Well, There you go. Let's see if we can't get a little more out of it. All right, choke's back off. Well, we'll see. Maybe choke on. I don't know. Probably have to turn that idle up a little bit. Okay, she's running on her own fuel. Excellent. I'm happy. I'm happy. There she goes. Got a good idle. But yeah, we gotta let it warm up now. We're gonna do that outside. Just let all this smoke burn off. Woo. We'll bring it outside and let her fire up and run a little bit idle, let all that smoke burn out, because I'm sure there's all sorts of nasty fuel and stuff caked up in the exhaust. Once it's good temp, we'll go ahead and set the start setting the carbs where they need to be. I think we got a pretty good base on where it needs to be. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and take it outside, let it sit in idle for a while, burn off any old dirt and junk that was in there, get up to operating temp. I think we're gonna be golden. Then we got to do tires. Those won't be bad on these though. All right, I think that's probably gonna wrap it up for this episode. I got it running, got it idling. Sounds good on its own. Little bit of smoke coming out. I think that's just what was left sitting in the pipe and all that over all those years of it just laying over. Sounds pretty good. Not having any issues there. So we're going to move forward with this. I think we're getting a little long on this one, but I got some new rubber to throw on front and rear tires. We're going to get those going with some new tubes. The seat's about ready to go, and we got a little frisky and went ahead and ordered new plastics. Now we found a company out of the Netherlands. We're going to go ahead and order one thing and see if it gets here and get an idea of if it's legit or not. But they seem to have all of these old plastics for these 80s and 90s bikes that you can't find here in the States. So we'll see how that goes. And if that goes good, well, then I'll let you know exactly who they are. Stick around for that episode. I can't wait for it. This thing's about to be back on the road very soon. But until then, remember, keep it on two wheels, at least upright. And remember, whatever you do, don't tell Shannon. Y'all have a good one. See you next time.